Having reached 10 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Commissioner Brown? Commissioner Brown? I do see you visually present. Commissioner Brown, can you hear us? Commissioner Fuller? Commissioner Fuller?
I'm assuming we do. We can hear that.
Commissioner Fuller? Commissioner Brown?
Doctor? Fine, I'm just starting my Criminal Justice Commission Zoom in a couple hours.
Commissioner Brown?
2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Do we want to mute them or?
Yeah, please mute him.
Oh, there you go. You got it?
You never know what either one of them might say.
Yeah, exactly.
To Commissioner Harris?
Present.
Commissioner Herr?
Here.
Commissioner Madrano?
Present.
Vice Chair Little will not be in attendance. Chairman Mercy?
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Okay. If you'll join me, please stand, and we'll have an invocation and pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to be in a nation that allows us to come together as citizens to represent our community in pursuit of the best policies to make our community and loved ones safer. In your name we pray. Thank you. Amen. Howard, would you like to lead our pledge?
Yes, please. Remember, put your right hand over your heart and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving into our presentations. We have no presentations listed. So we'll entertain a motion on the consent calendar, which includes CC1, just approval of the minutes from June 9th, 2021. Is there a motion?
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Brown, can you hear us? Commissioner Brown?
I'm thinking the volume might be down on his computer.
Yeah.
Well, it did pass with 4 yeses.
Okay.
Nays and 1 absent.
Okay. Can we, let's take a 1-minute recess and try to reach him on his phone, because it might just be a technical issue. Okay.
Do we know if there's a setting that's not clicked as to why they're not receiving the audio?
It could be just the output on their device.
Is your user muted? Is
Yeah,
your the-
I'm muted.
Yeah, that's the audio.
What's that?
You're the audio.
This is where it's coming from?
Yeah, that's the audio. You
But
can't be muted.
did they hear earlier that?
You've been muted. So unmute it real
Okay.
quick.
Try that now.
Commissioner Brown, can you hear us?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
what it was. Now we can't hear
So
him.
you can't hear. Yeah, because I muted him. Sorry.
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear anything up till this moment.
Yep, same here.
Yeah, levels 2, Katie, if we can have them drop off.
Okay,
Their level.
just a moment. Just a moment.
Katie's new job is IT.
Yeah.
No, you, that's not it. Okay, so we should be back, we are live. We do have audio stream.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting. And we'll be going into commission and staff presentations, starting with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And I understand we have our new sheriff's captain here. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, everybody on Zoom. It's nice to be back and in action. Today, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Deputy Lawrence Green. I am your Community Relations Deputy for Lancaster Sheriff's Station. My partner, Yanni DeSiga, is here with me, along with a few of my supervisors, Lieutenant Bruner, and our brand new captain, Captain Lackervain, to my left. Today we'll be going over the Crime Commission report for the month of May, CompStat City of Lancaster for the month of May, and our LEAPS progress report as well. So bear with me here. I'm going to try to make it quick and dirty if we can, and we'll be able to move on and get this whole meeting in order. Today we're going to go over our Crime Commission report for the month of May, our 2021 stats. Those should be showing up on PowerPoint presentation, which is to my left as well. Everybody on Zoom, if you can't see it, please let me know. All of our crime prevention techniques and resources, we use social media, Facebook Live, Zoom meetings, and workshops. We'll go ahead and go on to our next slide. We'll start with our burglaries. It's going to be slide number 3, I believe. There we go. Awesome. Total burglaries for the month of May, we're totaling 45. We're up 2 from 43 in April. Residential burgs totaling 22 will be down, or will be up as well from 13 in April. And our commercial burgs are at 23. They're also going to be down from April, which had 30. Due to the heat, everybody's out and about. No one's no longer confined, so you'll see those totals change pretty dramatically once everything heats up. Let's go over to our robberies. Robberies for the month of May, the total robberies are at 20. In April, they were down to 18. Armed robberies, whether that be with a gun, knife, however, any type of weapon, we're at 9. In April, we were at 10. Strong-armed, no weapon involved, just using hands, feet, fists. 11. In April, we were at 8. Let's go over to our community engagement report. Community engagement has been very difficult for Lancaster Station during COVID-19. We've been doing workshops, Zoom workshops, interacting with the youth virtually. It doesn't feel the same, as I'm a person that likes to be, in it and live, but it brings a better feel to everything, us engaging with the community. But we made it work, we adapted, and we got these Zoom workshops we were doing on a regular basis, monthly, even weekly at some times, and still interacting with our local communities, Tarzana Treatment Center, AVPH, still doing their meetings, their coalitions. So we've been adapting fairly well, but we're glad to be back in action for the new year. That would be the presentation for our Crime Commission report for May. Do we have any questions on that section so far?
I do. I have a quick question.
Yes.
Can you go a little bit more into the crime prevention workshops, kind of what they are, how well attended they are?
Absolutely. So we have multiple crime prevention workshops. We have some that deal with at-risk youth that tend to be involved in like burglaries. So what they do is certain resource centers, certain nonprofit organizations, what they'll do is they'll guide them in and they'll say, hey, I want you to join this workshop. I want you to interact with law enforcement, okay? I want you to see what you're doing and what issues you could cause by doing what you've done in the past. And what it does is it takes them and pushes them back on track because they were on original track to pretty much go berserk, right? So when we get online with these youth in the workshop, we tell them, hey, listen, this is what's going on in Lancaster Station. If you need to talk to us, come talk to us. We also have businesses that are on these workshops as well, other than youth. And we teach them what they can do as far as their security cameras, as far as them opening and closing, them doing drops for their money, things of that nature. All of this information comes through like Business Before Breakfast, things like this. These are like the business coalitions that are within the city that gather together and they interact with law enforcement directly to find out crime prevention techniques, what we can offer them to do, as far as proactive policing, what to do when their shop is open, what to do when their shop is closed. All of this is done via those workshops. And it keeps a fresh recollection of what we've been drilling into their head over and over again. And you'll start seeing a change. You'll start seeing a change in the way business owners behave. You'll start seeing a change in the way youth behave as far as, keeping out of trouble, and then businesses preventing crime by taking our advice.
Thank you. One more follow-up question. For the youth specifically, is there like a tracking mechanism, like to see, their progress after having been involved in the workshops and kind of follow up with how they're doing afterwards? Yes.
So each person that hosts these workshops, everything's recorded and documented, right? So we have an agenda, just like we have here. We have minutes that are documented and what was discussed from the previous ones. Depending on the behavior of the child, if they really have a good positive reaction with us, they'll come back onto the next workshop and report everything that they did from the previous one, that 1 month gap. Usually do like 30-day windows just to see the progress. We've had huge successes in just giving feedback to these youth that we weren't able to do before. We weren't able to interact with them because they heard all this hearsay about negativity. But when they see us on our workshops, it's like, oh, that's not what I saw, from whatever I heard from everybody else. So, it's nice to see a major change like that. Any other questions? No?
Yeah, actually,
Yes.
so what are the different avenues that the youth are recruited to be brought into those programs?
So we have Tarzana Treatment Center has a youth program for at-risk youth that are drug and alcohol related. Because they're already assigned to that nonprofit organization, that they will encourage them. I work with Jessica Morales, who's one of the coordinators there, and they get them on these youth workshops to discuss certain avenues that we can provide, an out, maybe an option like, hey, I'm having family issues, which is why I led to alcohol, why I led to drugs. So the city has a lot of resources where youth is involved, but to connect those resources with law enforcement is where we come into play. So us reaching out to those nonprofit organizations that have access to the at-risk youth is how we get the youth onto the workshop. So how we get them to be involved.
If I could just add to that, one of the things that we're really pushing forward in with the hybrid model is that youth interactive concept that we've already been developing through the high school district. Now we're looking at expansion and how that would relate also to younger age children at a much earlier age prior to any of that delinquent type activity, okay? And then certainly something we track at the school. So one of the presentations I'd like to bring in the near future is to bring the folks over that are involved in that program, the development. We've been doing it now for about 7 years, I believe. 6 years now in collaboration with the high school district. It started out if you remember, as a truancy, more anti-truancy program that has developed into much bigger networking of community involvement as it relates to the youth for changing certain behavior, and then again addressing those issues and service needs of those individual families that create some of this activity. So that would be a good presentation to see statistically how that's worked out with the data as far as the frequency of the kids. Even just the change in attendance is significant, up well over 90% on a conversion. So it has a lot of positive effects that have come from that and developing a lot of relationships community-wide.
Absolutely. Our youth diversion program that we have, Instead of taking the youth in to custody, Tarzana Treatment Center will be working with us directly to divert that youth and give them classes and or sessions to find out what the core problem is of that child instead of ruining their record at such a young age. So that will be implemented soon as well.
And how many youth are we talking about being served over a 30-day period?
Well, it depends. Our school units, it varies during the time of the year. As far as I don't have an actual number, but the youth that we interact with is tremendous. The question is which ones are at risk and which ones are still on the path but about to fall off who haven't really committed a crime. When it comes to Lancaster Sheriff Station, when we do interact with youth, unfortunately, it's after they committed a crime. So, our job in community relations is to interact with those youth that haven't created a crime yet, but are still might be on that path to crime. So, what we've been doing on that end is, having interacting with people that are having large events, getting our field deputies to see these youth and interact with them, because at the end of the day, the field deputies are the ones that are going to be dealing with the situation should that youth fall off the track. So I want them to get familiar with the faces. Hey, I know little Joey. I seen you at an event the other day. How you been? What you been up to? Just so they get comfortable with the badge and with the uniform, because at the end of the day, that's what they're originally scared of.
Has there been any kind of targeted outreach with some of the, you mentioned a couple of the nonprofits, but one thing that comes to mind, having worked with a lot of the foster youth programs, is that's one of the big indicators. I mean, the kids in those in foster youth have sometimes have a lot more of those triggers that can lead to that because of their life experiences, and reaching out to those groups, I think, would be great. I'm sure you've worked with some of them, but
yes,
that would be, I think, a key one.
Absolutely, and the foster youth are high risk because of the feedback. They base their emotions off of their peers, and if you have a group of foster youth in one house dealing with multiple issues within the house, that's when you see them leave the house and go commit a crime because they can't get away. So the workers and all of those people from DCFS, we interact with them directly. We actually have DCFS on site at our station with additional information and opportunities for that youth, just to try to do our best to get them off that path of crime.
That's great. Thank you.
No worries. Any other additional questions for the Crime Commission report? No? Okay. We're going to move on to our Comp City Stat Lancaster May 2021. We're going to go with the first slide. I'll wait for that to load up. Comp Stat City of Lancaster May 2021. The first slide is going to be the homicide slide. Homicides are down. We're about 1 for the month of May. We're going to move on to our next slide. And feel free, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. And if anything I need to elaborate, I have my supervisors here to elaborate. Rapes over a period of a year were also down as well in the month of May, averaging around 4. Let's go over to our robbery slide. Robbery slide is kind of breaking even from April to May, averaging just under 20. Aggravated assaults over a period of a year, they're also down, averaging around 68, give or take, for the month of May for aggravated assaults. Over to our domestic violence-related aggravated assaults over a period of a year. Those have gone up slightly, still averaging under 10. Burglaries over a period of a year, they're also going up. It is summertime. Month of May, averaging just under 47. Larceny and thefts over a period of a year, they are going to be up. May of 2021, just over 100. Grand theft vehicles over a period of a year, averaging around 74, down just slightly, just under 80. We're going to go over arsons. Arsons have gone up I don't know if that's due to the, 4th of July, things of that nature, but it's hard to tell, based off of a fire. Only LAFD can determine, unless it's blatantly obviously, if it was considered arson or not. Averaging around 5. And then we got our hotspots. Our hotspots change regularly, right? So the hotspot you saw last month will change based on the crime behavior. On our hotspot, I have to look because I have a black and white paper here, but you can look in off of, what is it, just south of Lancaster Boulevard, and I want to say, I think that's Avenue K, just south of K. There are the darker spots. Right there, by those two right there. And you got to remember, these are Part 1 crimes, so it's various crimes in the, that the computer generates. Okay, so it doesn't have specifically broken down what in that hotspot is what crime. So it's a multitude of Part 1 crimes, whether it be petty theft, burglary, things of that nature. Cap, did you want to elaborate on the hotspot?
Hey, I made this one work this time. Prior to coming to this assignment, I was working on projects for Lancaster Station and also Palmdale Station as the DOJ liaison for the department. One of the projects that we worked on is going to address the hotspots in a problem-oriented policing fashion. We're starting a crime prevention strategy system at the station to document our activities addressing specific hotspot areas, and it's going to be from the root problem. We're not just going to pile a bunch of extra units in an area and saturate it. We're going to go in there, we're going to develop intelligence, we're going to document that, then we're going to come up with a strategic plan of how to address those specifically. And the way that we're documenting it will make it easier for us in the future to address other areas that pop up, because the root problems tend to be the same, so we can quickly assess them and then quickly address them once we've identified what the root problems are. But the crime prevention strategy that's working its way into the system, deputies are familiar with the activities. They're doing we formed it around the activities that they're already doing, the intelligence gathering that they're getting when they engage with the public. We just want them to document it in a fashion where we can recover that information and apply it somewhere else at a later time when the similar type of incident arises.
Got a question. Is it ever a case where the Sheriff's Department in the Antelope Valley has looked at addressing a hotspot area that may be ethnic specific and sending in officers of that ethnicity to address it? I mean, is that something that is looked at, or is that frowned upon?
I try not to look at it in that fashion. Crime's crime. The community is the community. If it is, I don't see a lot of crime up here. This is a very diverse community. I know that has been a topic of discussion. I'm very aware of that. I don't want enforcement and I don't want problem solving to be driven by that level of interpretation. I want the deputies of the station to look at the crime. I want them to interact with the community and make the community partners in solving those problems, no matter what ethnicity that happens to be in that geographic area.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
I've got a follow-up to that. Going off of that a little bit, would it be, or is it something that's being taken into consideration, maybe sending officers in that are known in that specific community, maybe not race or ethnicity based, but just having officers that were maybe born and raised in the area, know the community very well? Will that be targeted at all?
I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, the sheriff made it a point as one of his visions of our department to hire personnel from within the communities that we serve. And we have a lot of deputies working at Lancaster Station that are part of this community that live here. They also are working, because I'm a taskmaster, they're going to be working 60 to 80 hours a week because we have a lot of work to do. If they spend 60 to 80 hours a week at work, that makes them part of the community just based on time. They're here. They're living here. They're eating their meals here. They're not at home with their families if they don't happen to live here. So they're all members of the community. The benefit to the crime prevention strategy that we're going to be using is that the community engagement portion of it, where they're developing the intelligence to address the problems, puts them in direct contact with the community every day. They're not just going to be doing crime report taking. They're not just going to be asking the community, hey, can you tell us about your neighbor? They're going to go out, they're going to shake hands, they're going to meet people. So the community that they're going to go in and hit hotspots on, they're going to know the deputies already just by contact.
And Commissioner, I don't know if you're aware of this either, but the city units, they have hard assignments to certain unit numbers. So 111 will be hard assigned, and that same deputy will be 111 for at least a couple months, so they get familiar with that specific area. Whereas another unit will be assigned to 112 on the east side. So now you have a deputy that's super familiar with the east side and certain hot areas. So it's designed to make sure that the deputy understands who lives in that area, how to interact with that residence in that area, and then that feedback is then given to the next new deputy or trainee to let them know, hey, this is what's going on here. This is the house. This is a problem house. This is a non-problem house. This is an area that needs to be watched because of this crime. So it's not like they keep getting pushed around in different areas and don't have enough time to interact with the community. They're actually hard assigned for months to get familiar with that specific area.
I have a question, because one thing I'm somewhat heartened by the fact that the numbers seem to be fairly stable when, there's many reports that nationally, overall, crime has gone up. And in particular in areas where law enforcement's been scapegoated and had their funding cut. So I'm just curious if you've got any thoughts on kind of the strategies that you've implemented locally that have helped avoid that trend of rising crime in other areas.
It pretty much comes down to proactive policing for the community. Mm-hmm. We have implemented the city has actually implemented neighborhood watching, which allows them to understand how to conduct proactive community policing to prevent the crime from even happening before it happens. Mm-hmm. So with the city's ability to do that and it being free of charge, the communities, individual communities can understand what to look for, what we're looking for, and what to do in their own home before the crime even happens to make that person go the other way. So just interacting with the community in general, the city having its own neighborhood watch crime prevention techniques appears to be working because they have the ability to stop the crime and prevent it before it even occurs, which keeps, our statistics stable.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for your hard work on that and all the deputies.
Thank you. Any additional questions regarding this hotspot or Part 1 crimes? No? Okay. Got some good news. We have our LEAPS back up and running. For those of you who do not know what LEAPS is, just to keep it generic, it's a plane that flies over the city and allows an aerial view of the whole city with direct contact to Lancaster Station. It's kind of like our own aero unit, or where we have the ability to see bird's eye view of anything that goes on in the city, whether it be us in a pursuit of a vehicle or something major going on. It could be a fire in the city. It could be anything, but it's way beneficial for Lancaster Station because the aero unit sometimes takes too long to get out here. And if we have this airplane over our head, it makes a huge difference. So today we'll be going over May's LEAPS progress report, so you can get an idea of what they've been doing and how they've been interacting with us. Okay, forgive me. I'm going to be reading this word for word, but I'll keep it fairly smooth. During May 2021, Leaps was dispatched 66 times, totaling 12.5 hours of airborne tactical support. Leaps provided a total of 31.3 hours of strategic surveillance with real-time visible and infrared imagery within Lancaster and surrounding unincorporated areas in the Antelope Valley, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department area of responsibility. Highlights from this month include the following. Leaps responded to several vehicle-related calls. One was carjacking pursuit covering Roseman, Lancaster, and Palmdale with shots fired at termination and SWAT called at 20th Street East and R4. Another involved a suspect loading a handgun in a vehicle at Division and Avenue L. Leaps provided coverage of a DUI in conclusion at 40th Street East and Avenue M. Another DUI was supported at 15th Street and Avenue I. The DUIs are very important because we've been having a lot of that lately, and we get calls that state, hey, I got this guy, he's waving in and out of traffic, he's blowing red lights. And by the time we get over there, that guy's nowhere to be found. But when we have the Leaps unit over, we can still have a visual surveillance of that vehicle and then go ahead and make a strategy to go ahead and stop that vehicle. Leaps provided support to deputies called to rave parties at Avenue F, 8, and 225th Street East, involving an estimated 300 to 400 persons in that environment. Deputies were supported at 174th Street East in Lake Los Angeles, with reported shots fired at an occupied vehicle by surveying a house and backyard. Those shots fired at those moving vehicles, they were quick, and they're in and they're out. So, once again, having the Leaps overhead, we can track the vehicle that takes off after those shots fired. Responding to senior assaulted calls, right here. Responded to a senior assaulted call at 50th Street West and Avenue M4. Deputies found an elderly man bleeding from being kicked. Leaps located the escaping vehicle, tracked and directed deputies, resulting in the arrest. Okay. Leaps provided assistance with several fire calls this month. One was a vehicle fire near Division and Avenue I. Leaps was used to check various locations in response to reports of structure or brush fires. Locations include 10th Street West and Avenue H, Sierra Highway, and Avenue G8. Deputies were called about a juvenile riding dirt bikes in traffic at 20th Street East and Avenue K, and dirt bikes speeding in a residential area neighborhood at 6340 Tree Haven Court with support by Leaps surveillance. That is also a huge issue, is the little mini dirt bikes that we see throughout the city. We have a traffic unit that's actually working on that to do, isolated incidences where it's mostly occurred. We have stat codes for those type of calls, so we can gauge where the saturation is, and then we hit it from there. That is a major issue, though, that I did want to bring up as well, and we are working on it at this time. Deputies were called about Leaps responded to a domestic disturbance call of a male and female fighting in a parking lot at 60th Street West and L8. Leaps was able to provide an overview to responding deputies. A call of a suspect taking items from a store and running at 830 West Avenue L was received. Leaps responded and provided surveillance of the property for responding deputies searching for the suspect. Leaps was dispatched to several vehicle incidences in support of deputies, including 2 vehicle collisions at 943 West Avenue K, with drivers arguing, and 2 vehicle collisions at 15th West and L, and a traffic collision without injuries at 20th Street West and Avenue J. Out of all of this that I just mentioned, there were 11% were involving property that Leaps was able to help out with. 34% were people. 20% were involving vehicles. 24% involving observations, and 10% of those led to arrests. So thank you, Leaps, for helping Lancaster Station out in Antelope Valley. It is a much-needed tool that we are definitely utilizing.
What's the average response time from when a call or when Leaps gets activated to when it's got the camera on the area in question?
The Leaps operator is physically in the room with the dispatchers. So as the call comes out, the Leaps operator can hear it immediately. So as the call is coming out, the LEAPS operator is already putting the address to location. The address to location is sent to the LEAPS recorder in the airplane, and they're already en route. And because you're in air, I mean, it's within a few seconds to a minute. Yeah.
The camera itself is immediate. So as far as the distance in the city, that camera's ability is far-reaching beyond just the city limits. So that can immediately be on scene, the camera can. Of course, the pilot doesn't see what the camera's looking at, right? That coordinated is through the process. And then they, at the dispatch console, can coordinate based on what they're seeing from the camera.
Yeah, that's what I think is so incredible about this program is.
Well, we've resurrected it
speed.
because of activity that has been increasing. And again, as we talk about all these things that we utilize, strategies from the Sheriff's Department as well as things we're doing in the underlying aspects of crime and in a proactive approach for prevention, those all things come together. And I actually believe, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that surprisingly in what's happening in a national trend in our city due to the hard work by the deputies at the station, the constant movement of resources around based on statistical data and crime mapping and all those issues, the community interaction as well as giving tools out there for crime prevention, all come together to maintain ourselves. That baseline you see in those crime stats for CompStat, that's a 10-year baseline that's established that we're continually chasing that baseline to evaluate ourselves weekly where we're at. Right, so do we have work to do? Oh, absolutely. Okay, are we going to slow down? No, every day we're innovating new things to try and create more avenues for success as it relates to crime prevention in this community.
Question, we have here, it was dispatched 66 times for 12.2 hours, and then it provided a total of 31.3. Is it 31.3 hours including the 12.2, or is that an addition? And well, how many hours of just regular surveillance as opposed to when it's dispatched?
So it depends on who's flying, because these people get flight hours in conjunction with helping us, the actual pilot. So as long as we have a pilot up in the air, then the hours start calculating, right? So it says Lease was dispatched 66 times, totaling 12.2 hours of airborne tactical support. Lease provided a total of 31.3 hours for strategic surveillance, where real-time, visible, and infrared. So the time of day, when Lee, do you know if it, like the, I haven't checked recently, but as far as the night vision on the camera,
Yeah.
those hours contributed, correct?
Yes. What's happening is we move that hours around. Like we give a certain window of time a day depending on the time of year and when the activity is occurring. So we try and correlate that by the busiest days of the week based by statistical gathering, where those are occurring within the community, and dispatch based on that from those hours. Okay, so day of the week, hours of the day. Obviously in the summer it's later, right? Okay, but again, what is the best support for the units that are in the field based on that activity? So we can move that around, we can add time to it. The vendor we work with is very proactive and very accommodating for those issues. They've been a great partner in developing this program from the onset, and it is luckily now at this point, it's become a very active tool for the sheriff deputies in the field to utilize. It's been an ongoing process, but I think at this point we've got it down pretty good.
Huge help, absolutely huge help, without a doubt.
Is there like a protocol or anything in place to target trends specifically for the city of Lancaster? For example, you mentioned that DUIs were up. Is there a way does the Sheriff's Department then tell the LEAPS program, all right, we're going to target this versus other crimes that maybe aren't as big in Lancaster, or is it just like a wide range of support that's being given?
I would say this, yes, if we have a problematic area, like, for example, we talked about the marijuana issue, okay, right? And as we were doing that eradication and joined in that effort out there in the East County, then we also applied that as well to our aircraft support, or we can apply that at any time. If we have a specific trend that's occurring in a part of the community, then we can focus that surveillance aspect on that area, okay? again, it becomes a tool for lots of things, right? So if you wanted to utilize it for, let's say, for example, you want to have eyes on a controlled buy in a narcotics operation or something like that. You can use it tactically. You can do it, all those things. We have that versatility to be able to apply that. And those are discussions that take place all the time, okay? Whether the information comes in through the city or comes through the sheriff's department, and some coordination of resources. That's why we have investigative overtime that we supply for the station. We do these different things in our contract relationship to give them the ultimate flexibility that we can afford and provide for them to operate within the community to address those specific issues.
Any additional questions regarding our LEAPS program? No? All right, that will conclude Lancaster Sheriff Station's presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, sir. Captain, if you'd like to take a moment just to introduce yourself. No? Okay.
I was going to escape that this time. Good morning. My name is John Leckerman. I am your new captain at Lancaster Station. I've been serving the County of Los Angeles and the Sheriff's Department for 26 years. As a matter of fact, my 26th anniversary from graduating the academy was a week ago. 2 days after I got the call I was getting this job. I've served in a lot of assignments. I was telling somebody earlier this morning, I took 3 runs at community policing as a deputy, as a sergeant, and as a lieutenant. Every one of those assignments brought me up here into the valley. So I'm very familiar with the trends that have been occurring up here. I spent the last year and a half working as the liaison to the Department of Justice on the settlement agreement that we're working through. It gave me an opportunity to be current on what's going on here. I'm very familiar with what the station has been working with the city on in order to address hotspots like we were talking about earlier. We worked with the command at the station, Captain Weber, who was previously there, to develop the crime prevention strategy that I'm going to be putting in place with the deputies. And it's a deputy-driven program. It's ground floor. It's not something that's coming from downtown saying, hey, we're going to do this. The guys on the street, they're going to go out and they're going to work it. They're going to bring the information in. They're going to partner with the community. It's my vision to see the community working with the Sheriff's Department and with the city to solve the law enforcement problems that are out there. And we'll be partnering with the community and with the city to solve the other problems that are not really ours. We'll take our place in each one of those, and we'll let the appropriate folks who are responsible for that handle what they're responsible for, and we're going to handle what we need to handle. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to serving and partnering with y'all.
Well, thank you very much. Look forward to working with you, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Next up is the Probation Department President.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you, sir. Good. How you guys doing? I've been in the middle of 2 meetings, so bear with me. I'm going to mute the other one. I'm Robert Sparwood. I'm with the Probation Department, and our statistics for the last month, unfortunately, I had some technical difficulty. Couldn't make last month's meeting on my attempt to zoom in on. We are still heading in the direction of anticipating an opening up. Our offices, as you know, they've all been closed since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. The Board of Supervisors and the county decision makers have not allowed us to allow people to come back inside the building. However, we are conducting field contacts, resident contacts with our cases, the folks that we do supervise. If things are running smoothly in that aspect, the deputies are anxious to do more. normalcy, if you would. They're anxious because it's in their mindset to serve the community as best possible. And I think with some of the limitations placed upon us because of the virus situation and protocols that we must follow, that at times they feel that they're not allowed to do enough. So the attitude and their approach is still strong and still good in doing what they do. Our violations are down. It appears that because of the pandemic that our situation has calmed down quite a bit. One of the good things that's come out of it is that the fact that we communicate more with our cases via phone and from community contacts, it appears that the more we have interaction with them of some type, it seems that that relationship is established and becomes more set in place where we're seeing a little bit of our violations and things of that sort come down about 10 to 15% from what I understand. We're still seeing less incidents in housing situations where we're getting more people placed. We still have some concerns with our transient homelessness type of clientele, but we do everything we can to minimize that. We're still seeking housing for females. We don't have any ability up here at all, or any availability other than the shelters. In a handful of cases, maybe there's some with children involved. So we're still hoping to see one or two of those facilities open up in the future so we can accommodate them and assist them. Many times we have people that are born and raised out here, and the closest availability to us is still in Pomona. So to take them out of their community sometimes is a good thing, especially if they're breaking the law. But when we're trying to build a rapport and support to have them all the way out in Pomona is difficulty for our female probationers. We hope to have back on track, as we talked about, next year, about a year and a half, 2 years ago almost now, it's been almost 2 years, I guess, or a year and a half ago, we had a workshop and we had a job fair for people on probation and parole, and it was extremely successful. We're hoping to get that up and running, and we'll probably start planning that in the next few months, just kind of see how things go, and hope to host it again next May. So that's still in the want section of our want list. We just are waiting to see what happens as we move forward through the pandemic and things of that nature. And that's pretty much what I have going on right now to share with you all. I hope everybody's well. To welcome our new captain for the Sheriff's Department. And hope to work closely with them, as they've always been extremely helpful to us in their support. So we do appreciate all you do for us. So I'm open for questions.
Yeah, follow-up question on your need for the home for the female probationers. Can you tell us a little more about what you're looking for in that? And is there anything that we can do to assist?
Well, unlike the metropolitan area, the majority of our housing facilities for men are sober living homes. When someone gets out of custody and is in lieu of being transient or homeless or couch surfing, trying to find a place to stay a couple nights here and there, we place them in a sober living home with their support groups. They can go to work and get a normal lifestyle, but we have housing. There are houses where you either have your own room or you share a room with another person, so they can house up to whatever their contract allows them to. We don't have any place for females. So when a woman gets out of prison or county jail and they're going to claim to be transient or no place to go, we really don't have a place to place them, to build that rapport, to allow them to remain in the community, to be successful, or at least assist, especially when they need housing. And if they have a child that maybe a family member can't always keep or maintain support, we just don't have a place to send them. Where in the men's case, we have I believe, 5 houses throughout the Palmdale, Lancaster area where we can place them. And they have a house leader, if you would, and then they get fed and they have access to a normal housing, if you will. It's kind of a group home for adults. We just don't have any availability or established availability for females out here in the Antelope Valley.
And just to clarify, you're saying that's leading to some being homeless?
Yeah, because the only option they have is to either find somebody that they can stay with. Not everybody's always open to that because of the obvious reasons of compliance checks in the community by the probation officers or sheriffs or whoever is involved in the compliance checks with conditions of probation. So family members aren't always open to having that, or maybe they're just exhausted from having it over and over again for a lengthy period of time, as most of our clientele are repeat offenders or have a history of offending or have serious offenses in their track records. So what we're trying to do, when we try to do is avoid that homelessness. It's extremely hot out there. There's health reasons, it leads to mental health situations. We're trying to stabilize them, and that's what the housing allows us to do. Everything's done with the intention of giving that person the best opportunity to succeed, if you will.
I guess my follow-up question would be, what can the city do to help this situation? Have you heard of any programs or facilities that maybe will open in the Antelope Valley, or is that just completely closed off? Is there nothing that you have heard of that is coming out here? Is there something that we can facilitate or assist in coming here? What options are there?
Well, that's a good question. Last time we refer them to churches and things of that nature, at a personal level. From the city's point of view, if they know of anyone, I'm not real familiar how the contracts work with the LA County, with the county probation department, and how they go about getting a house approved. But we've never really had too many opportunities or minimal opportunities to even have one even consider group home. Nobody wants them in their neighborhood. That's established. We understand that. Somebody moves into the neighborhood, they buy a house, 3-4 bedroom, and they want to open up a group home. The neighbors usually aren't really fond of that. So it has to be the right fit, the right place, and everything to accomplish it. So call it red tape, call it obstacles, hurdles. We just don't have any available to us that would give them stabilized housing for our female population. And it's not many, but the few that it is, we could use them. I'm not real sure what we could do or the city could do. My efforts are to make you guys aware of what's going on within our department and some of the struggles that we work with. And if you hear of someone that is in that form of business, that maybe the probation department would be a good contact. If someone has that thought that they would like to do something of that, we would be welcome to hear about it, so we could place a couple or a few of our females that could use that.
Well, it might be helpful to start a discussion with some of the nonprofits that focus on homelessness and other things that might not already be tied in, because you definitely hit the nail on the head. I mean, you have to find the right place for them and not make sure that it's appropriate to the neighborhood and has the resources they need. But at least initially, I'm thinking some of the homeless nonprofits may not be aware of this specific issue, and they may have some ideas or resources.
Hey, Lee, didn't the city of Lancaster have, I think it was a domestic violence type shelter across the street from the prison?
That still exists. Okay, that's through Valley Oasis. So maybe this is a discussion or an outlet for a group like as Chairman Mercy's talking about for outreach. But again, Mr. Spolva's bringing up a great point too. You know, sometimes group homes and neighborhoods and things, trust me, we have a huge impact as it already matters with suitable placement homes and DCFS referrals to suitable placement and all those things the deputies are already responding to on a regular basis in areas. Certainly I believe there's some locations around the community that would probably be appropriate and certainly something to look into and to accommodate that issue. And again, probation we have a great relationship, as you can see, just even by them to participate here. I believe that's probably unusual based on the relationship we have here, especially with AB 109 and the issues they're dealing with. But which is unfortunate sometimes with the county, as some of these things are underfunded. You know, as we look like for minors coming out of foster placement, that's always an issue with placement beyond the scope of foster placement. There's lots of issues as that relates to that. But we can certainly investigate it and look at some potential, maybe get together, Mr. Harris, with some of the folks in the management community for commercial locations or a large empty hotel complex, something like that, or nature, or an interesting thing, just this actually brings to light an issue, what we have down with how many livable space units you can put in a 1 acre parcel, right? With some of that unrestricted access now may create an avenue for opportunity there as well. While that might not be positive in some ways, maybe in this case that would be something that's workable.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you can see the shock on my face that the state put all this extra responsibility on local government without any additional funding to make sure it was done correctly.
Which we're already seeing that's occurring in the community, right, without our input.
Yeah. So we do appreciate the local probation department's work and in partnering with us on all of this.
I appreciate the compliments, and I'll pass it along. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that when we have these housing situations, every house out here in the group home type setting has a house manager. And the good thing is that they have rules. So, you know, most of the houses that we have throughout the Antelope Valley, we don't get too many calls out there. They usually call us first. We have that relationship with the individual. We can talk to them. So I'm not sure if the sheriff's department is making too many calls out there that I'm aware of. However, we do make sure that we do stop there on a weekly basis to check on them and make sure there's nothing that we should be concerned about. I mean, anytime you put 6 people in a house or 7, 8 people in a house, you're open, and then their mind wanders. You know, it's always going to be a concern, but we try to keep that more of it on a positive. So we are doing our best to make sure. And the good thing is that we have 5 or 6 of them that happen to be under our supervision. You know, then we're going to see 6 people with at least 2 deputies there, 2 probation officers are going to be there to answer questions and general things. So the rapport we've established with the housing contracts and the people that are residing there that are under our supervision seems to get better and better. I mean, last year or so we had one of our house managers go into cardiac arrest, and it was one of the former inmates that was trying to rescue him. And so unfortunately he didn't make it, but the person that tried to rescue him was on probation. So, you know, even though, you know, there's an unfortunate situation, the blessing is, you know, he had the right frame of mind to do everything he could to save that person. So there are a lot of good things that come out of these situations. We just don't always hear about them.
Did we have any more questions on probation? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Have a great month, and I'll see you next time. I might have to sign off and go to my other meeting, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate all your support.
Okay, California Highway Patrol.
Good morning. Glad to see everybody again in person. I'll start off with our DUI stats for the month of June. We had 60 total DUI-related arrests. It's a little bit down from the month of May. But typically during the summer, those continue to rise, so we expect to have a lot more of that activity. Vehicle theft, where we saw total of 10 arrests and recoveries of stolen vehicles for the month. Drug-related arrests and gun-related arrests, we had 8. And we've been given a directive to go ahead and start working with Caltrans on homeless encampment removal from the state freeway right-of-way, and we do have a few of those scattered throughout our jurisdiction along the 14 freeway. So we're going to be working with Caltrans and Valley Oasis to make sure that there's services provided, and the Sheriff's Department will make sure that they're aware so that they can coordinate with us so that when we do the removal, they're aware of where these individuals are going and what the plan is for them. We've had a significant increase in fatal collisions this year as compared to last year. Last year, the entire year, we had a total of 44. This year, we're already up to 28, so we're on pace to far exceed what we had last year. A lot of theories as to why that's happening. I think there's just a general disobedience to the rule of law when it comes to a lot of things, but I think traffic laws are among them. So what are we doing about it? We've conducted several different special enforcement units just within our own department, but we've also partnered with both Palmdale and Lancaster Sheriff Stations to form the Antelope Valley Traffic Task Force, which has been very successful. We've been targeting different areas. We kind of alternate between the city, the two different cities, and then the county area, and we pool our resources. And so when we're within the city, we provide officers to help, and then when we're in the county, deputies come out and help us out there. And it has been highly successful. The operations that we've had have resulted in numerous enforcement actions, and we target areas where we've seen a large increase in high speeds, which seems to be the biggest cause of fatal and serious injury traffic collisions. In June, we had 4 fatal injury and traffic collisions within the unincorporated county area, 180 total collisions, 16 major injury, and those are the ones that kind of get overlooked, but a lot of times these end up in life-altering injuries to individuals. And 16 of those were DUI involved. So DUI continues to be an issue. We also have 2 new cadets that are going to be graduating the academy and reporting to the Antelope Valley. So we'll have a couple more officers, which to us is big. And we're going to hopefully continue to see an increase over time to where we get the 5 additional spots filled that we're supposed to get. We also, as part of the task force, we've also we did our last DUI checkpoint in the city of Lancaster on Avenue K and Elm Avenue with the help of the Lancaster Station back on June 26th. And that's all part of the task force and the different operations that we're going to be doing jointly together. And from what I've seen so far, I think they've been very high profile and very successful. And we post about those on our social media, and as do both of the stations. And I think it gets the word out about traffic safety. And when you look at the number of people killed in traffic collisions in this valley compared with the number of murders, it far exceeds that. So I think it is a big problem that needs to be addressed. And that was where the 3 commanders all got together and kind of discussed this plan. And I look forward to working with the new commander to continue the cooperation. And that's all I've got.
A couple questions.
Yes.
When you talk about clearing the homelessness near the freeways, how far out do you go?
Well, so they have to meet certain criteria right now. So during COVID, they put a moratorium on removing anybody. And so now the state has said that they want to make that a priority to relocate. So right now there's certain criteria that they need to meet. They have to be within a certain distance of the right-of-way, making them a hazard or a danger for them to be there. And we have had, over the last couple of years, we've had a few of our fatals have been homeless individuals that ended up getting hit either on the roadway or struck off of the roadway, but they were close enough to constitute a hazard. So that's one of the criteria. There's other criteria, such as like when they're tapping into the water system, that the irrigation system for the freeway, which we don't have a lot of out here, but in the areas where I have seen the encampments, there are irrigation systems. So anyway, there's a set of criteria that we look at before we determine that this is a level 1 homeless encampment for removal, and then we contact Caltrans to coordinate from there. But we have to get approval first and show that it meets the criteria for that's an immediate safety hazard for the public and for the individual that has the encampment.
Okay, thank you. And the second question was, when there is a DUI arrest, do you differentiate between alcohol and marijuana, or is it just a DUI?
So it is differentiated as far as when we document it, and but as far as the law is concerned, it's still the same violation if we determine that someone's under the influence, regardless of what the substance is, whether it could be a prescription drug or marijuana or alcohol. If they're under the influence, then they'd be charged with the same section, but we do track which ones are marijuana related, which ones are alcohol related.
Okay, but the 68 arrests were just combined.
So those were combined. I don't have a breakdown. I could break those down for you next time if you need me to do that, or if you'd like me to do that.
Be interesting. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Following up on the homeless encampment, because I was actually working with one of these in our office that had been referred by the city of Palmdale, and I had gone to Caltrans. If somebody believes that there's a dangerous encampment, should they contact CHP?
Yeah, they could contact our office, and
okay.
What happens is, right now I have my officers are going to be notifying me of the specific locations of ones that appear to meet the criteria for removal and for relocation. And so I'll initiate the call with Caltrans and then set up a date where we go and we give them notice, and then they get a period of time where they get to voluntarily leave, and then if they don't voluntarily leave, then we go and we do the cleanup.
Chairman Mercy, and just to let you know that the City Public Works Department and as well as the Public Safety Office have been meeting with Caltrans on how this collectively will work out with us assisting them in those areas that they designate within the city of Caltrans property.
Yeah, I think we've all seen several along the on and off ramps, but I was yesterday or day before was driving northbound, I think between K and J, and like halfway between on the inside of the fence was somebody had set up an encampment.
Those discussions have been pretty, they've been ongoing now for several months. They have a very good plan. And just a side note for the captain, but he doesn't know, if he doesn't know yet, through the LC tax initiative, we've apportioned a part of that budget from public safety for support for the California Highway Patrol to work within the city as well, to work within the program they've already set up with the Sheriff's Department. So we're going to fund some of that effort.
Ooh, very good. Anyone have any further questions for Captain Bronier? Nope. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a representative from the district attorney?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning. How's everybody? Okay, you guys hear me okay, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so basically just statistics. We filed 175 misdemeanors last month, which is actually up about 20% from what we've been filing since some new policies took effect, but still down a lot based on the cases that we're now filing and the cases that we're now not filing. The felonies up a little bit, but basically pretty consistent at 106. So that's it for the statistics. We did start jury trials again, which is the first time we really started doing jury trials in about a year and a half. We did a couple last week, so we started those up again. Let's see, there's some legislation that's coming down. I don't know if the legislative people will talk about it, that will impact our ability to select juries. That's going to go into effect in 2022, and I think affect our ability to evaluate jurors and select jurors that will be fair and impartial. I don't know that our office has taken a position on that legislation yet, but should they take a position, I'll be more than happy to bring it to everybody's attention. Our drug court continues to be impacted. A lot of referrals to our drug court program. We're getting a lot of county resources to deal with the drug court program that we have here and the number of people that we are prosecuting that have, drug addictions. The other thing that happened recently is the Antelope Valley Courthouse was selected for a county pilot program to start looking at processing some of the defendants through mental health diversion. So that's had its ups and downs, but that program seems to be, we're referring quite a number of cases to that program. Again, I think a lot of that funding is coming from the county. I don't have any idea how that's working in terms of the treatment, the recidivism rates, if any. It's a relatively new program, and like I said, it's a pilot program. So we'll take a look at that and see how that impacts our ability to prosecute some of these cases where we're dealing with people with severe mental health issues. As you probably are well aware, a lot, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I would guess somewhere between 70% probably of our cases deal with people that have either drug addiction issues and or mental health problems. So it's obviously a big issue and something that these programs we're working with here in Antelope Valley to try and maybe address some of those problems rather than sending them all to state prison. That's pretty much it for me. If anybody has any questions, I'm here.
I got a question on the misdemeanor filings. Have any filings been made yet on those arrested during the recent cartel raids on the east side?
Those are coming. I forget the exact date. I was made aware that there were about 150 people that were cited for various charges related to those. I believe we will file those cases that are fileable under our policy, and assuming, of course, that they meet the evidentiary standards that are necessary. But I don't believe those cases have come to us yet for filing, but we are, I'm aware of it, and we're prepared for that. But like I said, I think it was, I want to say 150, but I can double check, get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question on the diversion programs. Is there a limit to how many times an individual can go through those before facing the full charges?
No, there isn't a limit, but the programs, I mean, for you to be successful in these programs, and I've attended a couple graduations, and I would encourage anybody that's interested to if you want to know, let me know, to come down and attend. They are pretty heartwarming, some of them, and some of these people have really overcome a lot. I think a lot of what we do is try to put people in prison for as long as we can, and that's certainly something that happens, but there's certainly been a movement towards trying to address some of the issues that underlie criminal activity, and mental health problems and drug problems are certainly a factor. And so, the drug court program here and the mental health court program here are excellent. And, someone that prosecuted gang members for 10 years, and, this is a different avenue to take for, a lot of people that are accused of crimes. And like I said, it does take 2 or 3 years. So a lot of the people that are actually successfully completing these programs haven't had a chance to reoffend and go through the program again. They have ups and downs along the way, but generally, if they complete the program, we've done everything we can for them, they go back out into the community and they reoffend, that's it. They're not going to get another chance.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Robert,
Yeah.
Mark Brown, are you seeing any change in criminal behavior in terms of frequency or severity in this new relatively pro-criminal district attorney climate?
The one thing that I've seen, and I think there are, just from what I've seen, there are probably a number of factors, including, the bail. It used to be that it was a lot harder to be released on bail than it is now. There's a lot more, electronic monitoring. There's a lot more releasing on your own recognizance. Certainly during COVID, there was a movement to try to get people out of the county jail system because they were a location where the virus was spreading, easily. And so what I've actually seen is people with multiple felonies, a lot more than what I've seen before. So they would have, a lot of it is drugs with a gun, let's say. I see a lot of those cases. They would be arrested, they'd be charged, they'd be arraigned, they'd be released on their own recognizance. A month, 2 months later, they pick up a stolen car. And then they'd be arraigned, they'd be either arraigned, released on their own recognizance, and then they pick up possession for sales. So, what I've seen is a lot of individuals with multiple felony cases. And, so that's what I see. And I think that's part of the problem with the bail system. When you start talking about, not having people post bail. There was just a new case that came down, this Humphreys case, that basically has to do with the ability to pay. You have to consider public safety as well when you're dealing with issues like bail. You're muted, Mark.
The whole triumvirate of mental health issues, severe mental health issues, drug abuse, and criminal behavior has been around for a long time. One of the things that we find in the emergency department is the mental health problem is exacerbated by the fact that many people who have been prescribed or are on medications for mental health problems, they don't want to take their medications. In fact, probably the favorite substitute medication for mental health problems in the Antelope Valley is methamphetamine. Bad combo of the methamphetamine, mental health, other drugs, and then we have a lot of criminal behavior. The homelessness issue, of course, intersects with this dramatically. Are there thoughts about, and I know this isn't maybe something you're familiar with, but not exactly your bailiwick to control, it's always a question of whether or not people can, whether we can divert people out of the criminal system and into a mental health system. There really isn't an effective mental health system available now to keep people whose behavior deteriorates when they get off their medications. In the old days, there was an effort to incarcerate people in that category in long-term mental health facilities. But that currently is not active. Any thoughts, either from you or anyone else that pays attention to this stuff?
Well, I can certainly, it's something I've certainly thought about a lot. And the biggest problem that we're dealing with is, a lot of these people have severe mental health problems. They've been in and out of prison for many, many years. And you're right, Mark, one of the big problems is getting them to take their medication. And the problem that I'm dealing with, and I'm the one that has to make these decisions, is that I've got somebody who has a history of violent crime, but also has somebody with severe mental health issues. So my options are A, send them to prison where they're going to, we'll all be safe for the year, the 2 years, or whatever, number of years it is that they're in prison, but they're going to get out eventually and they have zero resources. Or I put them in a mental health facility where they're going to get some treatment, but they can walk away from that facility whenever they want. And some of the people that we're dealing with, have they have a history of violence. Some of it's against family members and some of it's against the community. And frankly, it would really be nice if there aren't really any lockdown facilities. There's a couple, and I'm not talking about a prison or a jail, just a facility where you can't walk in and walk out, whenever you want. And that's, to me, from a community perspective, is the biggest problem I see in trying to deal with mental health and drug addiction is, other than jail or prison, I don't have anybody where I feel comfortable, sentencing them or sending them to where, the public is safe. So, I could talk about that forever.
Right, and well put. And I think if you had locked mental health facilities where the key ingredient is that the patients actually are given their medications on a daily basis and take them. When a mental health patient stops their mental health medications and substitutes methamphetamine, it's a combination for bad behavior, and the public is often the collateral damage from that process. Vanessa, I noticed that you're on the call, and I wonder, are you aware of any legislation in Sacramento that's addressing this problem?
In fact, I was going to let you guys know about all the bills that are expected to pass today in the Assembly Public Safety Committee. Not one of them has to do with mental health, though, or facilities for mental health, sadly.
Well, thank you. We'll keep an eye out.
I mean, what are the problems? And I don't want to belabor this. I know we've got more important, things to do. But I mean, one of the issues that I keep coming up with is I've got somebody with mental health problems who goes into somebody's house to use the shower, or they go into somebody's house, somebody's attached garage to drink a can of Coke. I mean, that's a residential burglary, right? But what am I supposed to do with that? I mean, the person has mental health issues. Usually the victim is like, yeah, this person has mental health issues. What am I supposed to do with that person? They're looking at 6 years in prison, but I mean, really, is that what we think is best to do with that person? On the other hand, we can't have people just walking into people's houses randomly and going into their refrigerator and helping themselves to. It's amazing how many of those cases we have. Anyway, I'll leave you all with that thought.
They're welcome to come to my house, Robert. If you go to the refrigerator, there's likely to be food poisoning. So.
I believe the public safety director had something to add.
I could say, and Mr. Sherwood's bringing up a great point, okay? While we come up with all these programs and things, it's really, do we evaluate where people land after they participate, as things we were talking about earlier. The cases he's talking about are a program that's just being implemented as alternatives to incarceration program with that mental health component that has different stages through the judiciary process where that person goes through an evaluation for a determination of what's the best outcome for that individual. And in all of these discussions that we continually have and that he's faced with is that what alternatives have we developed? We closed institutionalized mental health years and many years ago, decades ago. Okay, those type of facilities. The best drug treatment program that you can't just walk away from in LA County is within the jail system. Okay, there's something significantly wrong with that because people don't stay in jail long enough to participate in the program for the completion of 90 days. So these are things that we step into. In homelessness, I can tell you based on our contact with our program people, for our public safety specialists as well, and our experiences, the majority of those individuals are addicted to narcotics. That's really what drives it. And then understanding for the community to understand what a true addict is. There's a real physical need at a certain point. It's not a choice at a certain point. Okay, so there is that movement throughout that community that's really focused on narcotic addiction. And so how do we address that as it relates to where we put for placement, right? We do the best we can based on that, but if a person's not prohibited from leaving and non-participation, then we've gained nothing. We've just created a house for someone to continue with whatever addictive behavior they have. So these are all great ideas that come from our legislature at times, right, to address things, but really not well thought through to conclusion on what steps move forward. So it's great, it sounds great, it gets people votes, whatever it may be, but the reality is there's very little conversation with the people that actually deal with it on a level in the weeds, so to speak. So there is some frustration there. There's policy things we deal with. There's also certain limitations we can do as a municipality, right, that we get involved in. And I think in our city, we truly go beyond what's typical of a community in a municipal situation. At the same time, these are the problems that we deal with, right? So we've talked about this all the time here, right? What do we do proactively at a certain level? The captain discussed it at some point, things that very proactive community involvement is probably the answer. And it's really focused at the youth, right, as we move forward, but we still need to be well versed in what programs or services are out there to refer people to and then measure that success. And that goes for those nonprofits as well. Are they truly providing those services that they claim that they're doing, and what is their accountability for success? Because in LA County, I can tell you that's almost zero. Okay, unless we do it as a community ourselves, it doesn't take place. I got on my soapbox there, sorry, but
No,
it is very frustrating to do all the effort that we all do and discuss, and the outcomes are never followed through on.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We're limited to what we can do locally because, unfortunately, I don't see anything coming out of the state that's going to be helpful. But the discussion actually reminds me of several I've had offline and with one of Dr. Brown's colleagues, and I'm thinking maybe invite him in to speak to us. He's got a very interesting background. If you're not familiar with Dr. Roger Gurian, who was head of mental health at AV Hospital, before he was a mental health professional, he was a police officer. And so I hate to call him out in a public meeting, but he's a good friend, and I'll see if maybe he'd be interested in coming and talking to us, because I think we'd all have some good questions that he'd have a unique perspective having both of those backgrounds.
I think that's a great idea. I think I'll ask him as well to see if he wants to come in and chat with us. Lee, I would add to what you said in that I think most of homeless people are involved in some kind of substance abuse, but there are also, it's a very high percentage of those people that also have mental health problems. When we talk about housing the homeless, the problem is that housing has to allow for smoking cigarettes, drug abuse, in order to get anybody to stay in the housing. You can give them a house if you want, but if you don't allow them to behave badly in the house, they're going to behave badly out of the house.
Yeah, I agree with that too. You know, there's one of the things I was going to bring up in my discussion, because in the public safety office, we've been working very closely like with Kensington and the Kensington campus, and the unique situation there for response from the sheriff's department, really building in those thresholds on criminality versus a person's capacity for knowing better in that location. Some things have been incurred. I think the deputies have done a good job of evaluating when that individual was involved in some issue there or altercation, making a determination whether they should be moved towards, some type of 5150 hold or some other behavioral change locally based on treatment versus taking them to jail. So we've been trying to really work through that with the individuals there to determine what those thresholds are and follow through with that. And again, at the same time, being considerate of the things we talk about is not allowing individuals, because of whatever issue they may have, to victimize other people. Okay, so there's got to be a balance there, because we forget in these conversations a lot of times that for every one of these individuals that violate the law or some action, there's a victim that goes along with that as well. So that's a constant balance, and I think sometimes in talking about these issues, we focus more on the perpetrator than we do realizing that there's a victim associated to that perpetrator. And I think so. I feel strongly that we have to be victim advocates at the same time as we work through these resolutions and issues, and not forget that that is taking place.
Absolutely agree 100%. I think too often we're forgetting the victims, certainly lately in local and state policy.
Lee, I'm sorry to just I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but I totally agree with you that we tend to lose sight of victims, but it seems to me one of the important victims is the attitude in the community, meaning if the victims are all of us in the sense that we tend to live in a atmosphere of fearfulness, making sure our doors are locked, getting extra locks, putting bars on the windows, all of the devices that we do to protect ourselves, even though we aren't directly victims, we have a fear, and we live in a fear of being potential victims. So I think that's an additional cost on the victim side of the equation that is often overlooked. I'll be quiet.
Okay, I think that completes the district attorney update unless there's anything else. So moving on to the city attorney. Yeah, so since we don't have that, we'll just segue into Mr. Dorico.
Should I talk about happy things, or should we just dig deeper into the issues right at the moment? Good news is, and thank goodness for a community that really truly supports the efforts we're making in the city, and the Measure LC passing, and now we're starting to see some of the fruits of that investment from the community. And so Mr. Cottle and the mayor have put me on a very short window.
I can't hear Lee.
I'm sorry, for the full implementation of our hybrid model. So we're actively moving forward now. Now that we've received that funding, we've had some additional personnel. Linda McNeil, I'm looking at Linda specifically, we stole her from finance. We've put joint efforts now, the public safety office now with Andrew Noga manages code enforcement. So we have a conjoined office now that we're right now, because of renovation is a disaster back there that we're working through right now, but should be solved here in the next couple months. But with that, we have additional resources now for hiring new personnel and some expansion of programs, things that we're already doing, and we're very excited moving forward, and especially to work with our new captain who has a very strong resume as it relates to a community-based policing model, and that's very valuable moving forward with what we're doing. Again, there's things that we have some challenges that we're dealing with, just recently with some challenges we have on our administrative site program that should be resolved here shortly. But we've resurrected that program with some changes. That is to focus on taking some of the things off the plate of the deputies as it relates to more Prop 47 type related issues moving forward. So it's pretty exciting time now to be here at the city. We've been putting things in place as a basis for this program for several years now, with implementation and working with the DA, the Public Defender's Office, our judiciary, working closely with the alternative sentencing courts. The community service program has a great aspect for those individuals that can't pay fines, that type of thing, alternatives. And then, so we're going to be moving forward here with updates on our progress. We have training scheduled for the 28th and 29th. And our rollout training for some of the things we'll look at things from a perspective of a community-based model, where it'll be our complete public safety staff, some of our liaison deputies from the Sheriff's Department. I would really like our captain to be there, as well as 2 representatives from this commission to attend, and we'll invite some community members too that are stakeholders out in the community. So we are truly working from the aspect of community involvement in developing these programs as we move forward. I think for us it's just trying to be innovative as possible, which is, I think, we're pretty well known for here in this city, in this community. And luckily for us, we have the support of our mayor, vice mayor, and city council, and our commissions moving forward to be innovative and not be afraid. And will we make mistakes? Yeah, we have made a few already. Okay, we've rectified that, and we'll learn moving forward. Just some things that are coming up. And of course, I know, and talking to Chairman Mercy, is there are going to be some things you will be doing as a commission, as working out into subgroups and on identified issues that I'm looking forward to having those discussions with you. And our staff will obviously be available for you for a learning experience and identifying what those issues are, and then bring them forward to the commission for recommendations, maybe possibly to the city council, okay, for remedy. Just a couple of events coming up this weekend. Our Traffic Services Department is in collaboration with groups in the community to have they're calling the Tour de Luke. It is a bicycle ride from Lancaster to Lucky Luke's in Palmdale, starting in Lucky Luke's in Lancaster. 200 bicyclists that'll be going down Sierra Highway in the actual bike path down to Avenue O and then over to Lucky Luke's, but it is a co-sponsored event for the city. And so that could be fun for community participation. We'll have, the Sheriff's Department is also going to be there as well, so it'll be a safe event, okay, and manage the traffic safety issues and all those things as well. Okay, I had a list here, but some of it we already covered. Our program specialists and our retired deputies that are working on our contract items, they're actively working out there with community cleanup efforts, with our subcontractor groups out there, them collectively along with our illegal dumping programs. We're doing a huge effort to clean the city up. So as we deal with encampments as well as illegal dumping, the Public Works Department with their crew was some 200 and something complaints behind at one point that now they're completely they're able to address them immediately within a certain amount, 48-hour time. So that's been well done for the last several months. And I think there's been some idea that, you know, we at the city have somehow been sitting on our hands while COVID's been going on. Trust me, that is not the case. We've been actively involved out there with vaccination programs and testing programs and accommodations at the hospital and security plans for events, and moving forward, we'll continue to move in that direction. That's all I have.
Any questions for Lee?
Boy, I got off easy on that one today. How you done?
You covered everything.
Yeah, I think so. I tried.
Yeah. State legislative update. I think Vanessa, are you on?
I am. Hi, everybody. Good morning. As I said, there's a lot of criminal justice bills that are expected to pass today in the Assembly Public Safety Committee. Unfortunately, like Drew said, they don't seem to be helpful things that are coming out of the legislature. We have SB 586. That deals with criminal fees. It eliminates a number of fees and fines imposed by courts and counties related to the operation of the criminal justice system, and makes any outstanding debt from the eliminated fees and charges no longer collectible as of January 1st, 2022. It also repeals the ability to charge a civil assessment of $300 for non-payment of fines, costs for drug treatments and drug testing for offenders, charges for being permitted to pay fines and installments, domestic violence related counseling course fees, fees for costs related to collection of restitution, and fees for costs related to child abuse offender counseling, including drug treatment. And it also reduces fees that are a consequence of criminal behavior. So that is SB 586. The Assemblyman will be voting no on that. There's also resentencing. That's SB 483. It reduces the penalty for criminal defendants currently serving prison or jail terms where their sentence was enhanced due to prior prison sentences or drug-related convictions. He will be voting no on that as well. There's SB 775, the felony murder resentencing, that provides that a person convicted of attempted murder under the natural and probable consequence doctrine or manslaughter may file a petition with the court to have their conviction vacated and to be resentenced on any remaining counts if they could not presently be convicted of murder or attempted murder. He will be voting no on that. SB 262, we were talking about bail reform. This requires bail to be set at $0 for most criminal offenses with specified exceptions. It also gives most criminal defendants the right to be released from custody without making any payment to the court. And for those cases not eligible for $0 bail, it requires 95% of any funds paid to the bail bondsmen to be returned if specified circumstances occurred. And then the last one, Assemblyman will be voting no on that. The last one is SB 357, Prostitution and Loitering. It repeals the existing crime of loitering with the intent to commit prostitution. It provides for dismissal and recalls of sentence for solicitation for prostitution conviction, and it removes penalties for prostitution-related crime. So these will be up today in public safety. Also, I wanted to share with you that a few weeks ago, the Assemblyman was with many of the people in the city as well as law enforcement for the big illegal grow bust. It was a great success. He has been on the front lines of this issue. He had a meeting, a public meeting in Phelan this last weekend that dealt with illegal growth. I can tell you our office is inundated with calls from all over the district with constituents that are very concerned about this. And I wanted you to know that your Assemblyman is working hard and working with law enforcement to come up with solutions to this awful matter. Anyway, that's about it from my end. Does anybody have any questions that I can try to answer?
Vanessa, given the list of criminal justice bills about to be passed today, are you aware of any bill working its way through that would actually give a cash prize for someone committing a crime?
These are the ones that was sent to me by our office, and the Assemblyman is Vice Chair of Public Safety, so I think this is it in terms of what they're voting on for today. I don't see anything new coming up. So
I was being a bit of a smart aleck, but my apologies.
I just know about the recent conviction where the person stole over $600,000, but he only had to pay back $200,000 of it. So, go figure. Anyways, moving forward on behalf of switching hats a little bit to my Senator Wilk hat, I would add just a little bit that no cash bail bill. You may remember the people voted on this, and they voted against it just last November, and the legislature doing an end run around to make that system statewide after the voters have already said no. Is just an additional circumvention of consent of the governed. The people understand how important that is, and it's Senator Wilk would feel it's very unwise for the legislature to immediately try to undo a vote of the people. Recently, during the recent cannabis raids, Director DeRico had contacted Senator Wilk's office regarding securing National Guard support to ensure that they remain through the entirety of those raids. Senator Wilk was able to get a commitment from National Guard, and I understand that was very much appreciated by law enforcement and helping in that ability.
They were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were fantastic and very enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew coordinated a lot of that, so that's what we're talking about.
Oh,
but,
good.
yeah, the great group of people that came out, and we appreciate the support. That was hugely helpful. They showed up with a pile of trucks and a lot of people willing to work.
Well, that's great, and we're glad we're able to help in a small way with that. I would add just how impressed we are by that entire operation and appreciative of every law enforcement agency, with the congressman bringing in the DEA funding, and just really seeing everything working together. One thing I'd want to add, to point out that I think, not everyone may be aware of is, none or virtually none of those grows are within the city of Lancaster. And as I understand it, County Public Works refused to be out there assisting in the demolition, and the city of Lancaster really stepped up and assisted by getting personnel out there to help.
Yeah, the County Public Works folks wanted to help. They were not allowed to help. Okay, so I mean, from the, but I will say that there was no hesitation from our city council, our mayor, our vice mayor, and our council, as well as the administrative staff, for us to provide those services. That was the totality of all the equipment we have at Public Works and our personnel for 2 weeks out there, solid 2 weeks, with significant hours and cost to the city. But again, there is a nexus to us, and anything that relies around us, and we will always continue to work in those community partnerships. And as actually Mayor Paris stated that so last night. So if that comes around again, and the Sheriff's Department did a fine job, the Narcotics Bureau folks put together, I don't think anyone appreciates how big that is, to write 200 search warrants, probable cause declarations, filings, and then all the evidence gathering, and then the returns to the court, and it's just the paperwork aspect of it is unbelievable. And from the planning stage, it was significant. They did a fine job. And our folks, I was very proud of our personnel. And then, by the way, I can't go without saying this, right? The Vice Mayor and the Sheriff's Booster Club provided meals to everybody for 2 weeks. That is law enforcement personnel, city personnel. The city of Palmdale also contributed with a couple assets they had from the city and their personnel. So from a community-wide effort, it was tremendous. And so, but the guys appreciated being fed every day. I can tell you that was significant. And it was an interesting comment from all the command staff from the Sheriff's Department, because they're certainly not used to that in other communities. So that was a giant effort. And I appreciate you guys. I saw all you guys out there. And that was big. That was a big deal.
It was great to be able to tag along with the vice mayor and help deliver those, because just seeing, I mean, you could tell a lot of those guys were tired and they were working really hard, and it is very much appreciated. Let's see. I wanted to add, we've gotten some question back to Senator Wilk report on the how evictions are working. The state legislature and the governor did pass another eviction extension until I believe the end of September. As part of that, they expanded and changed around a little bit the landlord and tenant support program, and I can make sure we get a website out and publicly posted where people can get information on that program. A landlord can contact the state housing department requesting assistance. One of the issues we've had is landlords calling and saying, "Hey, I want to get on this program to help get the tenants back rent," and the state will now pay 100% of the back rent, but the tenant has to verify their income to meet certain eligibility requirements. And sometimes has been tougher for the landlord to get the tenant to participate. The state now has some staff that will help reach out to the tenant to try to, encourage them to participate and assist with that program. And so for folks that have questions on that, I'd be happy to talk after the meeting or reach out to our office, and we'd be happy to help. I can't see everyone who's in the Zoom. Is Congressman Garcia's office with us? No? Okay. Let's see. Then we are moving on to public business from the floor, non-agenda items. Do we have any speaker cards?
This is the time to address the Lancaster Criminal Justice Commission on non-agendized matters. Speaker cards can be found on the back table of the council chambers. And for anyone participating telephonically and wishing to comment on non-agendized items, please press *9. I will announce the last 4 digits of your call-in number when it is your turn to speak. Please state your name and eliminate any background noise. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. State law prohibits the commission from taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Please press *9 if you are participating telephonically. There are no speakers at this time.
Okay. Commissioner comments. Let's see. Commissioner Fuller.
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Brown. Oh, I think you're muted.
And I am. No, thank you. Nothing further.
Okay. Commissioner Harris.
Nothing.
Commissioner Madrano.
No comments.
Commissioner Herr.
No special comment, but I'd like to say big welcome to our new captain, John.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate all what you do. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And for me, just welcome, Captain. And again, thank you to all of the law enforcement agencies and offices that were participating in those cannabis raids. It was just incredible. I saw that the sheriff reported $1.2 billion. Just as comparison, at least the numbers that our office got was that the estimated underground market for cannabis in California is somewhere in the $6.5 billion range. So, I mean, you think about that, nearly a quarter. Either that or those numbers could be, underestimated. But just a tremendous operation, and thank you to everyone involved. And that's it for me. So we will adjourn to our having reached the end of our agenda, we will adjourn to our next regular meeting, Wednesday, August 11th.